All rise.
This is Deeper Than Money. Talk to me. I want viewers watching my show to believe in themselves.
Judge Hatchett is compelling.
If he is not going to honor you, he needs to be gone.
Compassionate.
I don't want you to give up on your dreams. I don't. And I want to figure out how we get this straight.
She's powerful.
If I were in this situation, I would have put you out too.
And she's on the bench.
I feel like I'm being judged here.
That's what I do.
You're watching The Verdict with Judge Hatchett. Zoe Harris is suing Sadie Davis in the amount of $1,300. Ms. Harris claims the milliner promised to make her a one-of-a-kind hat for a Kentucky Derby contest and says she lost to another contestant wearing an identical hat.
I understand from the complaint that you are suing the defendant for some $1,300. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And that you were dissatisfied because there had been a custom-made hat made.
Yes.
But it's not just that. There's more to this story based on the complaint that I've read. So what happened?
I had Sadie here design a custom-made, one-of-a-kind hat for the Kentucky Derby. As you said, it was $1,300. I do have it actually right here.
All right. Now, how did you know to go to her? I mean, did you all know each other before?
We did not. I did do some extensive searching online, and I did look at her reviews. I did see that it was a family of hat makers. It specifically said that she made things for the Kentucky Derby and that they were one of a kind. And that is
that true? Is that what your website and information says about your business?
Yes, Your Honor. And if you look at the hat, it's worth every penny. It's custom made. I made it from scratch using my grandmother's and her grandmother's techniques. And it's completely different from every other hat I've made because all of my hats are unique and different.
So how do you decide how to make the hat?
Well,
She comes to you. Do
Yes,
you ask her questions? Explain that to me.
well, she came to me, and I always have an in-depth conversation with all of my clients to understand their needs, their desires, their style. I asked her about her dress. I wanted to make her the perfect hat to match that and make her the real belle of the ball.
All right,
and that's
so-
exactly what I did.
So did you all have a contract agreement on this?
So we spoke via email. She
Okay.
sent me payment up front. I sent her an invoice, and I sent her the hat right on schedule. She was very happy with it. She was thrilled when she opened the box.
All right, so is this the hat that you wanted? I mean, is this what you described, that this is the kind of hat, the color you wanted?
This is very much what I described. However, when I went to the Kentucky Derby, I entered one of the hat contests. I entered into Most Elegant. And I told Sadie here, at the very beginning in our first correspondence through the emails, I actually do have them right here.
I'd like to see those.
I told her that I was going to be entering one of the hat contests and that it
Did she
needed-
tell you that?
She did, yes.
All right.
And when I went there, I entered Most Elegant, as I just said.
Right.
And the person who won, there's a photo right there of them. They are wearing the exact same hat, but red.
Oh.
And I went to go speak to this person, and I come to find out that
Sadie made the hat.
Yes, Sadie made the exact same hat.
Sadie, did you make this hat?
Yes, Your Honor. That is my client. She told me she was going to a wedding, but besides the fact, I'm an artist. If you saw the 16th Chapel, and then you went to Venice and you saw a beautiful painting by the same artist, you would know who did those brushstrokes. All of my hats are one of a kind, but I use a very special tool that I learned how to make from my grandmother, who learned from her grandmother, who learned from her grandmother. We are the only family that uses this very special tool. So of course you're going to recognize my designs in my
just
hat, and I
changed
win
the
the Kentucky
color.
Derby almost every year because my hats are so unique, just as my grandmother did and her grandmother before her.
Okay,
Well, I get all of that. I get the grandmother before and the grandmother and the family. I get all of that. The reason we're in my courtroom today is that she says that the only difference between this hat and the hat that she got to enter the contest was the color. So,
Your Honor, if I may, there's very big differences between the hats. I used very different techniques. I used a gathering of the tulle for hers. As you can see, the tool on the end, it's in a big pile. And for hers, I used a swooping and fisherman knot technique, a very different hat making technique. If I may get into the technicalities of it, it's just very different, Your Honor. The only similarity is they both wanted the same style and shape of hat, which is very common at the Kentucky Derby. Almost everybody has the same hat brim because that's the style for most elegant. That's what wins the contest. So of course they're going to have the same brim, and they have different colors, different tool, different designs. The details are different.
Well, the operative word is design.
Coming up on The Verdict with Judge Hatchett.
I am into style, and so I want to see this, and I want to see what this hat looks like.
Your Honor, may I ask you a question?
No, how do you get to ask the judge questions?
And later,
Wait, she got hit by a car and she told you not to call
Your Honor,
anybody?
that's what she said.
She
Your Honor.
said don't call the police and do not call the ambulance?
Yes, she said because only in Los Angeles, they don't come unless it's a severe emergency. That's what she said.
if you'll be in the Los Angeles area and want to bring your case to court, call 1-888-552-6878. You're watching The Verdict with Judge Hatchett. The Verdict with Judge Hatchett is back with the case of Zoe Harris, who is suing Sadie Davis for breach of contract.
The tool may be different, the way it's gathered, and the color may be different. The critical question in my courtroom today is whether the design is different.
Your Honor, if you look in the dictionary under one of a kind, it means that there's only one difference. However, I can tell you about 10 differences between these hats. As somebody who's been in the industry for all of my life, and I don't need to tell you about my grandmother and her grandmother,
No,
you already know that.
I know all about the grandmother, and I was thinking you're going to throw in a few aunts and uncles and
Your
cousins
Honor,
before we get through
if
here.
it's a small nuance that only somebody with the technical skill can
That's the
tell.
point I want to get to. So I am not one who is into making hats, but I am into style, and so I want to see this, and I want to see what this hat looks like.
Your Honor, may I ask you a question?
No, how do you get to ask the judge questions? So now we have, is this the front of the hat?
No, Your Honor, that's
That's
actually
the back of the hat.
Yes. So if you see how
Oh, I
it's
see
positioned
now.
on this woman's head, that poof
That poof is
doesn't
in?
look as large. And if you would position that on my head, it looks the same.
All right, do you mind putting it on your head?
Of course, Your Honor.
I'd like to see it. All right, so now, after you do that, I want to see it on your head.
Thank you.
Looks like the same hat to me with a different color.
You see, I'm not saying anything against her skill and ability or her legacy. It is a beautifully made hat. However, it's the same hat. Changing just the color is not it.
I do see some variations. In all fairness to the defendant, I do see some variations. So I see tulle. I see a big thing in the back. I see a wide rim. And I do agree, because I've seen a lot of pictures of hats for the Kentucky Derby, that there is some continuity in the way that often people wear these very, very large brims. Okay, so you can take the hat off now. Let me ask you what happened after you did not win the contest. You saw the winner in a hat that Sadie had made. What did you do?
I did ask Sadie through email for a refund because I asked for a one-of-a-kind hat and did not receive that. I saved for over a year for this event. It was more than just the $1,300 for this. The Kentucky Derby is not cheap, but it's been a dream of mine since I was a little girl to go. I'm not a rich woman. My husband and I, we run an after-school program, and that is our livelihood. But we scrimped and saved so that way I could take this trip.
All right.
I also am a small business owner, and I don't have a lot to cover your hat that you already wore.
If I return it, you can sell it to somebody else who doesn't mind having the same hat.
I cannot sell a one-of-a-kind hat that I designed specifically for you to someone else. I do all of my hats
but you can sell the
to order.
one-of-a-kind hat that you sold to her to me.
I can't help the fact that you both have the same hair color and the same tastes.
She's blonde. I'm a redhead.
Quite
Oh my,
frankly,
listen, I don't need to understand hair coloring. I'm just trying to get
Sorry,
to the
Your Honor.
bottom of this. Do you have evidence that you wish for me to see?
yes, Your Honor.
Let me see it, please.
What I have for you here is my website, my reviews. You'll see that each one highlights their one-of-a-kind design as well as their experience, 5-star reviews. This is the first bad review or the first person to tell me that their hat looks like someone else's. All of my hats are unique. They're made to order and they're built with your preferences in mind. That's the backbone of my small business.
All right. So now she reaches out to you. Did you respond?
Of course.
And you said no refund. I'm not taking the hat back.
If you read the terms and conditions, I say that you can only get a refund if your hat is damaged when shipping. Her hat was perfectly.
And she was very happy with it until she was in the
lost the
contest and she saw a hat that was very similar to hers.
Correct,
Now, I
Your Honor.
see some pictures here on the website that are very different from these two hats. And if I'm looking at the website, I would think that my hat, if I'm having it designed by you, would be very distinct and truly one of a kind, because these look like one of a kind hats to me. There's not something that looks like the other. Sadie, I am not convinced that this is enough of a difference between this design and the one that won the contest, other than maybe the tool is slightly different, but to, I think, a layperson's eye, it looks very, very similar, almost identical to me, in that it only looks different from the color. And so she's going to return the hat, and you're going to pay her the $1,300, and then I hope that you'll be able to sell it to someone else. That is the judgment of the court. Judgment in favor of the plaintiff. We will stand adjourned.
All rise.
Judge Hatchett has ruled in favor of the plaintiff. The defendant has been ordered to pay $1,300 in exchange for the hat.
Do you want me to return it to you now, or do you want me to send it to you?
I hope you enjoyed your free ride to the Kentucky Derby.
It wasn't a free ride. I told you I scrimped and saved for over a year.
Well, you just took money out of my children's mouths.
Coming up,
It happened too quickly. By the time I got there, he was out of the car and she was already hit on the ground.
you're watching The Verdict with Judge Hatchett. Allison Davis is suing Ezra Martin in the amount of $6,800. Ms. Davis claims she was walking to pick up her daughter and says Mr. Martin suddenly backed into her with his car while she was still in the crosswalk.
All right, Miss Davis, you're in here suing Mr. Martin. Said he backed up, hit you with his car. You were a pedestrian. You were not in a car. You were actually crossing the street, as I understand it.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me what happened.
So as I was going to pick up my child from school, this gentleman was backing up as I was crossing the street. I was going across the crosswalk. And as I was going across the crosswalk or entered into the crosswalk, he was backing up and he hit me.
Why were you backing up into a crosswalk?
Your Honor, she is lying because she was not in the crosswalk.
Oh, she wasn't in the crosswalk?
No, she was not. She was in the red zone before you get to the crosswalk. So, which is the reason why I backed up on her, because I checked my three-point check. I checked my side view, my rear view mirror. There was nothing there. There was no person, nothing in sight. So then I reversed, and then I heard a loud thump. I went out, check it, and then I realized it was a young lady. And I was very remorseful. I was so sorry. Do you need anything? Can I get you something? Can I call the ambulance or the police? No, don't call the police. They're not coming. It's not a serious emergency.
Wait. She got hit by a car and she told you not to call
Your Honor,
anybody?
that's what she said.
She
Your
said,
Honor.
don't call the police and do not call the ambulance?
Yes, she said because only in Los Angeles, they don't come unless it's a severe emergency. That's what she said.
Coming up,
None of this would have been an issue had he had insurance. So let's get to that point. When I went to call his insurance company, they told me that he was uninsured.
you're watching The Verdict with Judge Hatchett. The Verdict with Judge Hatchett is back with the case of Allison Davis, who is suing Ezra Martin for personal injury.
You didn't call the police?
I was on my way to pick up my daughter, and I was running a bit late. I do know that in the state of California, if you call the officers and there aren't any serious injuries, they may not come immediately. And I didn't want to be late picking up my child. So I didn't see any noticeable injuries at the moment, and my child was my priority. And then the next day I woke up and my knee was swollen and I was in a lot of pain. So then I proceeded to go to urgent care.
And that's the basis of the $6,800 that you're
I needed to be referred for surgery.
All right, stop right there. You're telling me that she was not in the crosswalk and that you have evidence to support that.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Your witness has been sworn in. Stand up. All right, so tell me what you observed.
I looked over. She was in the middle of the red zone. She was making her way through the red zone where the car was in front of. You know, obviously making her way to the crosswalk, but was right behind the car. You know, obviously in that situation, making her way there, I tried to yell and stop that situation, but it happened too quickly. By the time I got there, he was out of the car and she was already hit on the ground by the time I ran over.
And it's your sworn testimony that she was in the red zone. Mm-hmm. Did you see him?
I saw him, but he wasn't moving. And my thing is, he was in a vehicle. I'm a pedestrian.
Now, we have two people in my courtroom who are telling me, who have been sworn to tell the truth, that you weren't in the crosswalk, and by your own testimony, you said you were rushing because you were late to pick up your daughter.
I was picking up my daughter, yes, and I was checking the time on my phone, but I was not on the phone. None of this would have been an issue had he had insurance. So let's get to that point. When I went to call his insurance company, they told me that he was uninsured.
Judge Hatchett's verdict when we return. You're watching The Verdict with Judge Hatchett.
Why were you operating this vehicle with no insurance?
Your Honor, life got hectic, got in the way, and I forgot to renew my policy. However, I did renew my policy shortly after that incident.
I could have had my daughter with me.
Your Honor, I should not be at fault for the negligence of just jumping into a street behind a moving vehicle. I obviously did what I was supposed to do as a driver. I could not assume that you would jump into the street as a pedestrian. My God, I'm very sorry, and I'm very remorseful. I would never meant to hit you with my car. First off, my car is my baby, so I would never disrespect my car or a pedestrian.
Well, let's not put the car before a human being.
I would never do that.
All right, come on now. Come on. Let's work with me on this. Your car is not more important than a person.
Definitely
all right, so this is an unfortunate situation, Ms. Davis, but under these circumstances, I have a neutral witness who is here saying that you were not in the crosswalk. I don't think that he would have backed up had he known you were there, and I think that you were rushing, and under this fact pattern, I am going to deny your $6,800 claim. Nothing further, we'll stand adjourned.
All rise.
Judge Hatchett has ruled in favor of the defendant. The plaintiff's claim has been denied.
In the crosswalk.
He probably paid this guy to be here today.
I don't know this man. Why would I pay a man to come and lie?
Okay, let's exit to the rear of the court.
This has been a production of Allen Media Group.